Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. Today we're going to be talking about how we got Sovereign solo queue only playing ADC with a 70.5% win rate, which you can see the stats here. Obviously a very, very high win rate relative to what I've done in the past and most people can do in general, and doing it all solo queue. So here again, you can see the stats, and then you can also see my champion stats. You can see I pretty much played Xayah and Corki. If I'm autofill, I play other autofill champs, but I played only Xayah and Corki. I think the only other ADC I played, I had like 3 Zeri games, and that was at the very start of the season. And you can see 74.4% win rate with Xayah and a pretty high win rate with Corki as well. So we're going to go into a Xayah game, and I'm largely just going to give you guys the main tips for climbing on ADC, and they're relatively straightforward because this role again is very straightforward, but also requires a lot of mechanical skills. So anyways, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so getting right into it, we're going to be watching the game that got me to Sovereign, but I will largely be focusing on not the game itself, but rather giving tips for how I was able to do this. Again, champion pool is going to be the first thing. So you saw Xayah, Corki. They're two of the best ADCs, if not the 2 best ADCs right now in the game, in my opinion. They're very consistent, and they're overall very, very strong. Also important to note is for ADC specifically, this role kind of has champions that actually work a lot better in solo queue compared to others. So the main thing you're looking for is self-sufficiency as it relates to solo queue ADC, because obviously, again, we did this all solo queue, and so I'll relate the tips to ADC as a whole, but also to solo queue. And as it relates to solo queue, having a champion that has some way to protect themselves is extremely important. So Xayah very obviously has her root and her ultimate, which are both very, very defensive spells and can save her life in a lot of scenarios. She also has movement speed in her second ability, which once again can definitely save your life. Corki has that second ability, which is just a really solid form of mobility. Definitely not as much mobility as Xayah, but still has some form of mobility. Then the other thing you're looking for in a solo queue ADC is to be both good early and late game. You don't want to only be good in one or the other, because then let's say you're only good early game, but you're not good late game. If your teammates don't peel well or don't play super well, it's pretty hard to do a lot once the enemy ADC catches up to you in gold to some extent. Like once they, just get relatively close to you in gold, basically. Later on in the game, if it's a scaling ADC, it's pretty hard to play into if you're just a purely early game ADC. Or if you're a purely late game ADC, and your teammate plays pretty bad in lane, you don't have a lot of control over that because you're like, say, I don't know, a Vayne who's kind of just waiting for things to happen. So having forms of self-peel and then having a good balance of being good in shot, or good in the early and the late parts of the game, those are going to be some of the main things you're looking for. So again, champions like Xayah, like Corki, some champions like Kai'Sa's not bad. Trying to think of others kind of off the top of my head, not the best. So maybe just ask in the comments what you think about, or what I think about your champion, and I'll let you know how I think that fits into solo queue. That might be an easier way to go about it rather than listing every champion right now. So again, talked a lot about champion choice, but obviously there's a lot more that goes into ADC. I'm sure there's plenty of people who lock in Xayah who don't have a 74% win rate, and so one of the main things starting off is going to be the early game, how we approach the early game. And as it relates to early game, it's especially important as a solo queue ADC to focus on lane priority. So getting the lane push, having control of the wave, making sure the enemy aren't pushing you under turret, making sure as soon as the wave gets up here that you're immediately on it. So look how even though I'm 1v2 because my support's currently not here, I'm in a way better position in the lane than the enemy. I'm instantly hitting the wave, instantly ready to hit the wave again because my teammate's not here. I'm not hitting it as aggressively, but you see how I'm instantly on that wave, instantly preparing for it, always making sure that the enemy aren't just able to walk up for free. And then obviously we find, an opportunity to get a bunch of damage onto the Jinx. We're going to take the Jinx. And that's, again, largely due to the fact that we kept the wave pushed enough that we could get level 4 in time, that we had control of the wave, all that type of thing. And again, that's even with my Morgana, as you saw, being recalled when she shouldn't, meaning that I'm kind of stuck 1v2ing. Because there are going to be a lot of times where you are stuck having to 1v2, having to do stuff like that. And the wave is your best friend in that scenario, because if the wave is pushed, ultimately the enemy can't do a whole lot, because if they push into you, they're going to be down level, which obviously is going to be bad for them. They're going to take minion damage, and then again, you're just going to have that easy way out because you're not going to have minions hitting you or anything, and you're not going to feel pressured to kill the minions because you've already killed most of them earlier on. So all of those reasons mean that playing around lane priority in a majority of situations is super important. Now, it's equally as important to understand matchups. So obviously, if I'm into a Thresh Draven, I might not push as hard because they can freeze on me and then, engage on me, and it's hard if I'm like, say, Xayah Yuumi, for example. And so still understanding matchup well enough is going to be super, super important. And the most specific thing that you need to understand about matchups is going to be the difference between having the better all-in and having the better poke. And also, I want to point out I should have bought anti-heal earlier than I did here. Random little aside. Should have bought it right away after my boots. But yeah, there's a difference between poke and better all-in. So the better all-in is, of course, champions that win in a long fight. you know, champions who have a lot of upfront damage, but also sometimes stacking damage, like Lethal Tempo, like Conqueror, or just other things like that. Champions that rely on getting multiple hits. So for example, Vayne needs to get 3 auto attacks to proc Vayne passive. So these types of champions, they do better in kind of longer fights in lane. And then also as it relates to your supports with more CC who play around Ignite, a lot of engaged supports, Nautilus, Thresh, Leona, whatever, they play for the all-in. Now on the other side of things, there's the poke. So better poke is going to be having longer range, having poke spells like Ezreal first ability, for example, or if you have a Karma, you know, like a Karma poke. So understanding, again, the better poke versus the better all-in. And then as it relates to enchanters, the better, the shielding enchanters are better for all-in because they have an upfront shield that blocks the all-in and you can't get anti-healed, obviously, whereas you can get anti-healed or you can get Ignite anti-heal. Obviously in lane, people aren't going to have a full anti-shield item, so you don't have to worry much about anti-shield early on in lane. And that healing is going to be better against poke because healing, obviously, like let's say I take some poke from an Ezreal first ability, my Nami can heal that up, but my Janna can't heal that up because my Janna only has a shield. So again, the gist of it is understand if your champions have better all-in or better poke. That's really what you're looking for, and then you play around that. So if the enemy have better poke than you, or better poke and sustain, so say they have a Caitlyn and a Soraka, so they have good long-range poke, and they have healing, right? You don't want to play to take an even trade. Like, I don't want to go and auto-attack the Caitlyn, and then she autos me back. We each lose the same amount of HP, but they heal it. Meanwhile, again, I don't have it. Like, maybe I have a Thresh, and so it doesn't get healed back up. So understanding kind of how that can work out, and then playing around that. So if my strength is to all-in, then maybe I'm going to manage my wave in a way where I can eventually dive and crash and get an all-in, or I'm going to be more likely to freeze on them to make them walk forward and then find that, you know, help my Thresh or my Nautilus find that hook or that engage angle, that type of thing. Or if I understand that the enemy want to look for an all-in as a poke champion, I make sure to preserve my HP so I don't, you know, take, for example, one big trade and then I get half health and I go and take another big trade because they're going to have a better, you know, situation there. I'm going to instead slowly push the wave, slowly poke them out, make sure I'm not taking any unnecessary damage, those types of things. So again, as it relates to the early game, things I really do well, I play around lane prio, I understand my matchups really well, as we kind of spoke about, and the champion choices, again, as we spoke about, with the self-sufficiency and obviously picking strong champions. You can play any champion, you could climb on any champion, but ideally you're playing stronger champions, makes it easier, of course. So that's a lot of the early game. The last thing there is jungle tracking, so play more aggressive when your jungler's on your side of the map. Play more passive when yours is away, or when theirs is towards your side of the map. I've talked about jungle tracking a lot in different videos, so you can definitely find more videos on that type of information. But that's the early game stuff. That's what really allowed me, again, to climb through the early game. Now we go into the mid game, as you can kind of see the game progressing into the mid game here now. And really what it comes down to in the mid game, the 6 to 11 minute mark, is just find as much gold as possible. It's not more complicated than that. You'll try to overcomplicate it. Don't. If this play that you're making is giving you gold, do it. If it's not, don't do it. Almost always the case. Obviously, there's rare exceptions. That's almost always the case. And so, for example, here you see me leave my top side because my Sion rotated top side earlier. He's back now. And so I decided, okay, well, Sion's going to steal my gold from me on top side. I'm just going to go bot. So I just went bot. I took waves. I took my jungler's camp. I'm just getting gold because that's the only thing I can do. So what are you going to look for when you're trying to get gold? So the first thing you're going to typically do is push your own lane. So again, because my lane was being pushed by Sion, I left. But like typically, push your own lane out. Then okay, my lane's pushed out. Where else can I get gold? Well, you can get gold from your jungle's camps. Don't take his jungle camps when he's farming them and he's right on that side of the map. He's going to run you down. But you can take his camps if he's on the opposite side of the map fighting, or he's just been, you know, doing a really bad job of farming the whole game and he's not really paying attention to it, or that type of thing. You can also go for turrets on other sides of the map. So let's say that my top turret's already killed. Like I'm the dual laner, the dual lane turret's already died, I've killed it. And then I push the wave out. Well, now I'm going to look, where is there a turret somewhere else? And so here even, again, we go back here. Why was it important to be here? And why did I stay here when Sion was here? Because I knew I can get a turret out of it. I ping on my way. I'm telling him, hey, let's go get this dang turret. My Morgana support has been stealing my waves all game with support items. So I trust her to take that wave for herself. You know, she can do her, like whatever makes her happy, I guess. Meanwhile, we're going to be, again, using the fact that Morgana's being an idiot to use that time again to get a free bottom lane turret. So I'm playing around the turret. I'm making sure after I get my wave pushed, after ideally turret's dead, but again, in this case, turret's not dead topside, we're going to go find a turret somewhere else. And then, okay, now we've got that turret or something along those lines. We can maybe take the fight, as you saw here. And then we look for gold wherever else we can get it. Here I was saying like, oh, maybe I can even get this turret just because many of the enemy were dead. And so I play around trying to get that turret, but I don't overextend. And now that that play is kind of gone, that bottom lane wave is pushed. Now I go and I look for gold elsewhere, which now in this case is farming, again, the buff because my jungler is very inefficient. And then going back to top side, now what do? I go top side, I push this wave. Once again, we're playing around that turret. Here I actually notice the enemy are overgrouping in mid, and so I even go for a second turret top side. Again, I'm skipping around because I'm kind of just trying to give you guys the examples. I don't need to have you guys watch every small part of it. We flash, and then we get the Ahri there obviously as well. But basically, again, you see, like, you go to your lane, you push out your lane is pushed, ideally turret's dead, go get gold elsewhere. Okay, now we push that lane, or we took the gold in a different part. Now we go back, or we find gold elsewhere, and we're just constantly searching and searching. And then we get to the 11-minute mark, and that's pretty much where we see ourselves, obviously 10-minute right now, but the 11-minute mark is when Baron spawns. And right around when the second dragon's gonna spawn. Second dragon spawns around 10:30 to 11:30, depending on when the first one was taken. As you can see here, spawning about 24 seconds before the Baron, and that's pretty common that it spawns slightly before the Baron. And when that happens, you're usually concerned with the Baron over the dragon. Make sure you have vision on the Baron when you can. Make sure the enemy aren't sneaking it. But if they're not sneaking it, you have one of two choices. Sneak the Baron yourself or fight dragon. The times you're going to fight dragon are when you're even or ahead, because if you're even or ahead, then you have a decent chance of winning the fight. You might as well go fight. If you're quite behind, then you want to just sneak the Baron. And so here you can see, like, I already know my team's getting it. I want to make sure I get mid control instead, right? And so just getting that mid control, luckily I'm fed enough that Mordekaiser doesn't kill me here. Honestly walked a bit too far though, a little risky. But shout out to Bloodthirster and Xayah for being probably the best ADC for dealing with Mordekaiser, but definitely too close for comfort. Mistake by me there. I digress though. Again, value the Baron, value mid prio and mid control in order to have the ability to walk into the Baron, and then just focus on, again, getting control over that Baron, over the dragon. And then this is where, again, your mindset shifts from, oh, I want to farm, take turrets, take everything, to now, I want to get control of mid, and I want to use that mid control to get control of Baron. And now we're just more around, follow our team and fight around Baron. I no longer have to take every wave, look for a million turrets, and be perfect in terms of farm. Again, now it becomes more, I can actually fight. You can have the fun part of the game where you get to team fight, you get to do a lot of stuff. In this case, my team decides, hey, like, you know, Talon's a loser, let's go fight without him, and they leave me. They go kill everyone without me. That was kind of mean of them. I felt quite left out at this point, but obviously, you know, it is what it is. Nothing you can really do about that. We just push out the waves. We play for the free turret, and, you know, from here, obviously, this game is pretty straightforward. We're ahead quite a bit. Pushing out the waves, making sure, again, in the 11-minute, you know, onwards kind of part of the game, I just want to make sure waves are pushed so that we can go into objectives, get those objectives, and then use the objectives to take turrets. Again, use the Baron to take turrets, use the Elder to get the Baron to take the turrets, and then we win the game. And that's pretty much, you know, again, the gist of it. Keeping the lanes pushed here, I go and fight, and at the end of the day, we're able to end the game here. So, yeah, that was pretty much the gist. Like, this entire game really did showcase, I think, pretty well what it was that allowed me to climb, how I climbed, and all those things. So hopefully you guys can take those tips and, you know, climb yourself on ADC if you are an ADC player. As a whole, if you guys are interested in more content like this, again, now this is our second Sovereign account. We're trying to get as many as we can. I'm guessing that we're going to get 3 Sovereigns accounts this season and 2 Challenger accounts. That's my current prediction. I currently have 2 Sovereign, 2 Challenger, and 1 Grandmaster. We'll see how that goes, though, because we only have, you know, a couple more weeks of season. Regardless, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.